and I did with a 20 unit. In the span of 6 months, that's a total of 22 units. I got into it, updated it, and with the 20 unit, I started the refinance. So by the end of about 10 or 12 months, so during my fourth and fifth years, I had fully refinanced 22 units, and I hadn't even swung a hammer. I hadn't done anything.
Chris, welcome to the show today.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this, man. You manage what, like 2,700 units? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, 2,700 units in 707 states.
That is outstanding. We want to understand that a little bit on how you're able to scale like that, which is really cool. But let's just give us a little more background, on yourself and kind of how you got to this point.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in a town just outside of Omaha, Nebraska. Lived here my whole life. And then after that, I went to college. After college, I got into law school, actually. I thought I wanted to be an attorney. So during law school, I was in the ROTC for Army. And at night, I was getting a master's degree in negotiation. And I knew that that's about the time that I read the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad book.
Awful book.
Yeah, terrible, right? I knew it's what I wanted to do, but I was like, in the mornings, the Army, during the days, the law school, at nights, the master's degree. I got to figure out some other time in my life. So I did a couple of years in the Army after graduating law school. And in 2013, I got out of the military, started practicing law, and started investing in real estate. That's when I started to implement the Purple Bible, if you will.
It is funny. Like think of everything in life that you do. There's always an opportunity cost. Like you read Rich. When did you read the book? What year was that?
2008.
So 5 years have gone.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to.
But this is so common, right? Because and the thing is, you're like, oh, I'm already on a track. Yeah, I'm already on, and I can't change it.
Yep.
Like, why can't you change it? Like, you could. Now it's hard, and your friends are probably going to not understand, or your parents are going to kick you out of the house, or not. But it's like, why do we do that? Like, we know it's not. Eventually, we would go in there. Like, why is that?
I don't know. Mine was kind of the stereotypical, the attorney, and I'm studying, and so I'm set, right? And I mean, 2008, 2013, that would have been a prime time to start buying some. I know.
Hey, look, it get worse. I got into restaurants during that time, so mine was even worse.
Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate, but I'm glad I started in 2013. Glad it wasn't 2023.
Well, it's better late than never.
I guess that's what I meant.
Now the thing with this is why I say the book is awful. It kind of messes with your mind and implants this thing about passive income and financial independence. You're like, cool, and then it uses words like cash flow business and real estate, and the reader is now, it's left to the reader to figure out, which strategy exactly will get me there. And of course, the book is silent. Otherwise, you couldn't read it in 3 hours.
Right.
And so what do and this is what I said. I went into restaurants because that's a cash flow business. Now, I know in hindsight, know it's a cash business, which now is different. So how did you, in your mind, you read the book and now, yes, time goes by, but now in 2013, what was your initial real estate strategy?
The traditional BRRRR method with a single family residence.
Describe that just in case.
Yeah, no problem. So, I knew that I wanted to try to recycle the money that we had because we didn't have a lot of money. So we would buy a single family home for $60,000. We'd put $20,000 into it. We'd rent it out. We'd refinance it. And the bank would say, well, this is worth $100 now. We'll give you an 80% loan. And so that gave me back my original $80,000. Now I owned it for free, and I'd roll on to the next one. I mean, I learned a lot there too, because I was swinging the hammer myself and everything there. So it took me a long time to realize I need to start scaling, but that's how I started.
Now, when you first started this, did you think that this was some kind of vehicle to, become financially free, or was it hey, I just want to generate some extra income on the side, or I just want to be a real estate investor so I can check the box? Like, what was your plan with that first house?
I thought of it in terms of what my expenses were. So I try to calculate out, like, look, this house is going to make me $150 a month in passive cash flow. If we're lucky and successful on this, and that's going to pay for my electricity bill. And maybe the second house I get can pay for a half of my car or whatever. And that's what I at first had thought. But to be honest, I had no idea what it would turn into.
Now, did those houses actually do that?
Not really.
Why not?
Well, for the same reason I'm about to say that I talk to all of our investors now, it's like some of the pros are that you can keep the same tenant for 5, 10, 15 years, and that's great. but you have one air conditioning go out, that's your entire year's worth of cash flow. So it's like, I think, and we realized that on the first house, we had something happen with the septic tank in the back. We had to replace the septic, and we found some efficient ways to do that. But there goes not only that year's cash flow, but probably the next year's cash flow. So that's why it's just, there's no scalability.
There's no scalability. And I think, and so what did you do next? You're like, okay, that's not working. I need something else. What was your next step?
So it took me 4 years to take that next step.
4 years on top of the 5. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You just I'm going to rub it, salt in the wound here. First 4 years, I did a single family home a year. And that's because I was doing everything myself with my dad, who's very, very handy. We were utilizing his home equity line of credit to get into these homes. And so we'd lay the flooring, do the toilets. But at the end of 4 years, I had 4 single family homes that may or may not have been cash flowing, which is 4 more than the most of America. And so I was doing my best.
And you had some equity in them. So it's not like, so you had some equity in that. So
Certainly,
that's good.
certainly.
Yeah.
It wasn't for nothing. And I spent a lot of quality time with my father too, which was great.
That's right.
But 2017 is when I said there's got to be something better than this. And so I applied the Burr method to a duplex. But this time I didn't tell my dad, actually. I was going to surprise him because he was kind of set in his ways, very smart guy. He would rather see it succeed than me try to sell that it will succeed. So I did it with a duplex, and I did it with a 20 unit. In the span of 6 months, that's a total of 22 units. I got into it, updated it, and with the 20 unit, I started the refinance. So by the end of about 10 or 12 months, so during my 4th and 5th years, I had fully refinanced 22 units, and I hadn't even swung a hammer. I hadn't done anything. And that's when the light bulb went off.
So how did you get into that deal? Did you still self-finance? Did you refinance from some of the houses? Did you bring in outside capital? How did you get into that 20 unit?
Yeah, so you'll appreciate this, and I know a lot of your listeners will, but all 2,700 units I have, I've never brought my own money. I brought $0 of my own money. Now, that's not technically true. I put a lot of my money in, but it's come from the real estate income, if you will. That deal, I borrowed $100,000 from a family member, and I paid them 10% on that $100,000. And so 12 months later, I gave them back $110,000, but I owned a 20-unit apartment complex for $0.
So you're basically applying the exact Burr method just to a larger building. And that sounds like maybe it's like $800,000, $900,000 that you bought it for?
Yeah, we bought it for about $850,000.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you weren't really actually syndicating money. You were using other people's money, but you were literally, I mean, that's how we flip houses is you borrow the money either from private investors or from a hard money lender. You return the money with interest, you refinance or sell, and you kind of move on.
That's
and you
it.
decided to, and so you did the same thing. You're like, I got to scale this. So I'm going to apply the same technique to something bigger and just make more money in the process. And then you said, so what was your aha moment from that 20 unit?
Well, then I owned a 20 unit for $0, and I was elated. So I realized that my list of family members and friends who would list me $100,000 was probably already at an end. So I had to start learning syndication. That's when I realized that.
So you realized it because your personal money and your buddy's money, your dad's money was over, and you needed.
I could see it would soon be over, and
yeah.
The fact that I proved it at a 2-unit level and then a 20-unit level, there was no doubt in my mind the numbers and the whole approach. It was going to work for an 80 unit. It was going to work for 180 units, and I knew that because of that, I need to start syndicating these deals. Now, and perhaps my legal background realized that it's important I start doing it right. I didn't know a lot about the legalities of the syndications, but I knew that it was serious. So I got a hold of a really good SEC attorney, and on we went.
Yeah. So it took you how many till that 20 unit till you realized that you need to get into syndication? How many years from that first time? So you get 5 plus 4, and then maybe another year or so. So
yeah,
10
a couple
years.
Years, yeah.
So it took you 10 years to realize that syndication is the way to go.
It did. 10 years. And if I started right now, I'd know that that's the answer right now.
Yeah. That's so. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to teach people to get into syndication right away and skip the single family house investing. But like I said, I'm no better than you are. You maybe didn't take action and you flailed around, doing a Burr method. But like I said, I spent years in the restaurant business, which failed miserably, lost my shirt. And then I spent 3 years flipping houses for the same reason you did. I'm like, oh, I'm going to become a real estate investor. I'm just going to flip my way to freedom. And of course, you can't. And
right.
I didn't. but I was in the game, of course. But syndication is a little different. I don't know what you saw is, but when I raised money from private individuals, I would have the money for 6 months or maybe 12 months, like you did for your 20 unit, and then you return it with interest. People understood it was very easy. The turnaround was very quick. Raising money, though, when I shifted from that to syndication, was a struggle for me because it was a different kind of investor with a different mindset, right? Now you're locking their money up for whatever 5 years. You're giving them equity. Well, how do I know? How do I measure that? And I don't know. What was that transition from borrowing money to people to actually raising money and raising equity?
It was frightening at first. He just, learning the syndication process and the PPMs and all these things you had to make sure you're doing correctly, while at the same time having conversations outside of your circle. It was tough. But I think one of the benefits outside of me learning lending terms and whatnot over those first 7 years where I hadn't gotten to syndication yet, was that I had built up some type of track record, right? It was single family or a duplex or a 20 unit. But when we went to syndicate that first 52 unit, at least I had some experience to say, look, this is what we're going to do. We're just going to pool people together. And it was still a little bit friends and family. It was actually a 506B. So at least it was some people that were still kind of in our circles. But I can't believe, looking back on it now, how scared I was to raise $1 million. And now I would love the opportunity to only have to raise $1 million to get into something like that'd be phenomenal. But it's just take on a new task, learn as good as you can, refine, and keep moving forward.
Why is it so scary? And then more importantly, how did you eventually overcome that fear?
I think one of the things maybe could be the imposter syndrome. Like in the circles we run in, people, your listeners, this is all we talk about all the time. We love it. It's real estate. But if you were to stop 10 people on the street, most of them are like, real estate sounds, I know it's good, but I have no idea even how to get in there. And so when you're talking to these people and you're talking about things you've actually done yourself and been successful on, I feel this way anyway. I'm not a salesman. So when I'm having these conversations, I'm genuine in the fact that, all these things really did go very well. And at the same time, I don't want to sound too salesy. So it was tough. And then again, you don't want to lose their money. So there's a lot of things to make sure that you're doing, setting up the right teammates, right partnerships to make sure you're moving forward correctly.
How did you, at one point, did you feel like you became more confident?
Closing the first syndication.
A 52 unit.
Yeah, 52 units. And that was just closing it. And as we all know, that's just the start of the work, right? There's still a lot more work. But the fact that I already felt comfortable in knowing how to operate an asset manage, if you will, or at least speak to the property managers, because I've been doing that for years. But getting it all together to close and then start the business plan, once that worked out, we had enough confidence in our team that managing the asset would be fine. So it was just getting through that first red tape. After that, it was like they opened the floodgates for us. We were really excited.
Sometimes you just got to do it. It's just simply the activity, and with that, you gain confidence. Now, at what point do you consider yourself, becoming a full-time investor? Maybe when you cover your living expenses, or maybe you stop doing whatever. Like, what? At what point do you just say, yes, I consider myself financially free. I can now focus on real estate full-time?
I stopped being an attorney. I took my last case about 1.5 years ago, but for about 2 years, I was really close with my boss, great guy. And he allowed a flexibility to kind of just make sure you're doing your work, Chris, but you don't have to come into the office kind of thing. So I basically had 2 full-time jobs.
Nice.
I had the attorney that I was a full-time job on, and then I had the real estate stuff. But it took me 2 years to basically take on 0 cases, but close out those cases. So I would say 3 years ago is when I said, it's time.
And you probably could have quit sooner had you not had the caseload.
I would have quit 5 years ago had I known what I know now.
Yeah, that's interesting. And this is why we have this podcast, Chris, and have people like you on there, because most of us flail around because there's no one showing us the way. This is why this purple book just confuses you to no end. Then you're sitting around, trying to figure stuff out. And that's why we do what we do. So I love that. Now, at what point, here's what I find with most syndicators. They'll do a deal and it's awesome, right? And then they, quit their job, become financially free, which is super awesome. But they don't really realize that they're building a business, that they have to build a business, that they actually have to hire people. They have to maybe do some planning. They have to maybe invest in their business. Most people think that the way they scale is to do another deal the way they did last month. And I was certainly that way. And we really didn't have a lot of planning and foresight. And so until you see the wheels coming off, you're like, oh man, I got a problem. And so we're trying to be a little more intentional moving forward. How was that for you? Like, did you realize right from the get-go, man, I need a hiring plan, I need a marketing plan, I need a pro forma, I need some financial projections.
Yeah, I didn't. It sounds like the way we started is a lot like you. We just kind of learned as we went. A lot of hires. You fire a little bit along the way. You're learning what you need. We didn't project out 10 years right away and say we need a team like this. I mean, right now we're vertically integrated, so we manage half of those 2,700 units. So if you take our property management company and our syndication money, we're at over 40 employees. I can tell you 4 or 5 years ago when we started this, having one employee was outside of my concept. Like I couldn't even. So I tell our investors, like the purpose of this, and you may have a different opinion on this, but the purpose of this is to not necessarily make sure that our investor or me personally can get to a beach somewhere and do nothing the rest of our lives. I sincerely just want to give people the opportunity, including myself, to do whatever the heck they want to.
That's right.
So if they want to keep being a doctor and be able to turn those lights off when they're done and get that passive income, then invest in real estate throughout those 10, 20 years and build up. If you want to be an electrician, just build up that nest egg. I can tell you this much. I didn't want to be an attorney and I freaking love real estate. So this is my active/passive career. And so I guess that's what I did not think about, was that I was building a business right at first. I had no clue.
Now, and so you build multiple businesses. How did that progress for you? And at one point, did you realize that you actually have to build a business? Like, because I mean, most attorneys or professionals have never had employees before, right? So having even a virtual assistant is like it's like will blow your mind right there. Yep. So at what point did you realize that? And then how did you change your mindset or how you went about actually building the business? How did you then build that?
It's almost like I'm in a psychiatry session thinking back about the lessons I've learned, because it's hilarious how it took me 4 years to realize I don't need to be the one changing the toilets, but it took me another 4 years to realize I don't need to be the one doing the books. I mean, I don't need to be the one who's managing the property. Looking back, I guess I should have made that decision quicker. We hired our first employee in 2020. So, and then that was kind of a catch-all, and he's still with us. Nick's a great guy. He's really heavy into acquisitions now. And then it was a CPA in-house, and now it's, we have more acquisitions guys. We have an underwriter. We have a capital raiser now. And I think it just, as the business grew, and I hate this phrase only because it's used so much, but I actually live it, is that I realized that I needed to start working more on my business than in my business. And I know that's kind of cliche, but gosh dang, is that true? And over the last 3 years, now we have 40 employees. So
I mean, I agree with you. I think in the early days, we just try to do deals, and then we realize we have to build a business, and we do everything ourselves and get a virtual assistant, but we're still doing everything. And then until we realize yet again, through, pain and suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
That, oh my gosh, I got to stop doing everything. I actually have to hire more help. But no, I don't. Then I have to pay for someone. Then I make less money. And so I'm just going to keep doing it, because $60,000, no, I'm going to keep that money. Yeah. And so we do things on our own for too long. And I wish, like you, someone would have sat me down, Michael, you're an idiot. Here's what you need to do. You need to hire this out, because to me, and I found reading a book right now, or just read it, 10X is easier than 2X.
Great. I just finished that myself.
And funny, because it just came out. And, it's like you have to change your thinking and focus on the 20% that's going to get you to the next level. If you're going to do that, you have to give up 80% of what you're doing right now. If you don't, you will not get to that next level. You're going to continue working yourself to the bone until you burn out. And so, I actually, Nighthawk, I built with that intention. This is why I have 2 partners. And now on the educational side, on the training company, I didn't really do that. And I ended up doing way too many things for too long, until I realized that it's that who, not how. I need to have more who's and figure out, and worry less about the hows. And so is that something that you've already been able to achieve, or something you're working on?
We have achieved it in certain areas. I mean, heck, our CPA left a 180 member CPA firm to come over and join our team as our in-house director of financing. Why? Because I hate doing stuff like that, and he's the subject matter expert, right? He's just great at it. Have we perfected it? No. But it's funny we're having this conversation. Just today, I met with some of my partners in one of our other businesses, and the question was, do we have room for $150,000 hire? That's a lot of money. But we realized it would triple our revenue, triple our profit, actually, not our revenue, it would triple our actual profit. And we'd earn 5,000 less, but we'd earn 5,000 less a month than that tripled profit. So it's not even a question. It's just looking at it differently. It's not about how much it's about how much time you're wasting when you could just pay someone to get it done so you can grow the business. And I guess it's a little redundant, but you get what I'm saying.
Can you be more specific about that role and why you're saying that this for $5,000 per month is a $60,000 salary? What's the role and how would that person result in 3 times more profit?
Sure. So this business, the business we have another business named Liquid Lending Solutions. It's a hard money business.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually built off of investors, just like our syndications, right? So a lot of our investors will put their money in, and we have a fund and whatnot. They're earning 8 to 10% or whatever, getting paid monthly. But the individual that we would use would kind of help build that business by building the relationships with more access to money, some lending relationships, because we already have a line of credit with banks, and actually act as somewhat of a chief of staff, if you will, of the business to help grow the business I hope I'm not giving away too much, but you want to operate a business as if you would sell it in 5 years. Not that anybody would, but if you're not operating it that way, there's probably a loophole or a problem or an issue with your business. And it realized that, like, if we could just figure out to have that person and remove ourselves from doing the stuff that we typically shouldn't be doing, us 4 owners, we could be out there making the larger relationships, the bigger business building, and it would triple the income. And it's very feasible. I mean, that we've lent out over over $55 million already. And that's just us doing coffees and podcasts ourselves. So it's very, very interesting to see the amount of money you can actually make when you're willing to lose a little bit at first.
Well, it's a mind shift from this is an expense to this is actually an investment, and I think that's what you're saying here. We hemmed and hawed at bringing someone over to handle underwriting and acquisitions, right? Because we had a partner that was doing it, he's very good at. The problem was when we actually got a live deal, he would go dark for like 90 days to close the deal, do due diligence, and no one's underwriting a deal, right? So we're doing like 2 deals a year because he's out for like 6 months of the year to consume the deals. We're like, why don't we bring someone on, expensive hire? But what if that one hire can result in us doing 1 additional deal? Like, what would that mean in acquisition fees and asset management fees? Like, it would not only cover the expense, but it would be a multiple in return on the investment. And I think that requires a mindset shift from, little thinking to 10x thinking. Is really what it is.
That's the perfect way to look at it. I had that conversation with family members and even my dad for a while. It was like, why are we going to flip this house? We'd still rent it out, but why are we going to rehab this house and pay some GC $30,000? We can do it ourselves for 18. And the conversations we would have is, yes, but it's going to take us 12 months to save 12,000. We can make 18,000 on that, or we can make the money and do 8 houses this year. Mm-hmm. And so you're right. It's an investment. Yeah, that's a lot more succinct way to say it, the way you said it. It's just an investment. It's not an expense.
Now, to what level has partnerships played a role in your company? I know it has for ours. We have had partnerships along the way. Unfortunately, in the multifamily syndication, these are not lifelong partnerships. Oftentimes, they can be, but they don't have to be. And they played a pivotal role in our history. And I was curious to see how you've leveraged that or not.
We have. That's all it has been. I mean, I consider, and I'm not just trying to. I do consider our investors our partners, but we've had co-GPs. Mm-hmm. We've had people who we offer people who bring over a certain threshold of money to our deals are some Class B shares, so they get part of the waterfall. We've taken on co-GPs. We partnered with property managers, maybe who they get a part of the Class Bs. If they work with us on the cost of the property management, we would be nowhere without partners.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about maybe pick a partnership and kind of how you structure with a partner. Because people ask, well, how should I structure a partnership? Well, I'm like, well, it depends. But maybe give an example. You don't have to be specific, but maybe how you approached it, why you felt a need for a partner, how maybe you found a partner, and
Yeah.
kind of how it went. Because I mean, honestly, not all partnerships go well. You know, some of them don't go well at all. But
We've
give
lived
us an
that too.
example where partnership, you used a partnership and it was maybe the right thing to do or maybe not the right thing to do.
Yeah, I could give a good and a bad. I mean, we've always tried to. We're not really into the negotiation part, and what I mean by that is, of course, we negotiate nonstop. But what I mean is, when we're taking on a partner, it's always great to start in somewhat of a 50-50 route. I'm not saying that should always land there. I'm saying in the past, we have jumped into some partnerships and said, we're not going to argue about 40-60 or whatever. Let's just agree to 50-50. That has bitten us. We've learned a lesson because we realized we were doing a lot more than 50% of the work. But that's also benefited us a lot. And I would actually say more because it shows so much trust right away. And I know I'm being general, but I've lived this. It's just so much trust in the other person right away that other person, if you already feel good about the rapport and the trust, I feel like it almost makes them want to succeed. They're like, you know what? They could have argued this forever. They could have argued this for 5 more percentage points. Where it's 50-50. We're going to ride or die together, if you will. That has benefited us more than it's hurt us. To give an actual concrete example of way we've done this with a property manager is that we got a property manager to lower their percentages down to 4%. Now, I understand that may sound market, but the reason it's not is that's all we pay at 120 some units. There's no on-site, there's no workman's comp, there's no general admin. We pay 4%, which usually on top of that, you have all the salary. And in exchange for that, we gave them 10% of our Class B shares. And so the owners of that property management company are not only incentivized to make sure that property is going to perform, but they're going to make sure it performs over our preferred return because that's when they start making more money. And so far, that's really been successful as well.
Nice. I love that. So what's kind of new? What's in the future for you? What's your kind of your plan for the next X years?
Gosh, our deal flow has, I don't know about you, but our deal flow is actually off the charts. We have a lot of opportunities right now. And now, of course, I'm sure you're running into a lot of problems that we are. There are a lot of sellers who haven't realized that they're holding an asset that probably isn't.
Oh, yeah.
However, we've assumed a lot of great loans. We're assuming a 2.6% HUD loan right now. We just assumed a 4.5% Fannie Mae loan. So those are some great ways where we're purchasing some great assets that are relatively new. Seller financing has been huge for us.
Interesting.
So that $10 million apartment that was $10 million 2 years ago, it's probably now only worth $8 million. One of my go-tos, whether this is the perfect way or not, I'll show them the pro forma and I'll say, I'm not trying to be rude. I'll sit down on Zoom with you. Let's go through my pro forma and you tell me where I messed this up, because if I'm misreading the numbers, then your 10 million's right. And usually if they'll agree to that, at the end, they'll say, yeah, you're right, but I still want 10 million. Someone's going to pay it. But it is a good segue for me to say, how about this? We know it's 8 million. How about a $2 million seller carry? I'll get you your 10 million. You give a $2 million seller carry. And what that helps us do as owners is that we could bring 2 million less to the deal in equity. So that's been really successful for us. And I guess that's a very general way to explain why we continue to stay busy. One more thing I'm really, really excited about right now is a company. Well, I say company, but it's called Raven. It's a property. It's an investment company that we started. It's a company in that it's an LLC, just like each one of your syndications are a company. But the reason it differs a little bit is that it's geared towards, it's a Regulation A. I don't know if you're familiar with the
familiar, but never use it ourselves.
Okay, so well, this is our first, and so it's a learning curve, but it's proving to be successful, and we're pretty excited about it. The benefit is you can get in; you do not have to be accredited. As low as $250. Now you can set that minimum as low as you want. We wanted to set it at $250, and what we did with our company Raven is that the purpose is to go out and do what we've always done. My company's Levin Wealth, by the way. I didn't even mention that. The company, our syndication company, is Levin Wealth Capital. We teamed with some solar energy people, and we formed a group named Raven. We're going to go out, we're going to buy real estate that we've always bought, that we've always made money at, that we've 700 investors now that we have always made money with us in real estate. But on top of that, we're going to install solar, and we're going to decarbonize the environment with maybe some low flow water mechanisms, maybe some affordability. And so it allows that $60,000 student or even $110,000 first year professional to say, I don't have a $75,000 minimum. I can't get into that regulation D, but here's $1,000 and I'm going to make a 10% IRR. That's not a lot, but it's more than any other CD out there. And I get to play around in real estate and decarbonize the planet, which we're pretty passionate about. So I'm really excited about Raven.
Yeah, I love that. Every time you have a mission like that, it just makes it special and makes it different than every other syndication company out there. That's awesome. Chris, how can people connect with you, find out more about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, thank you. So leavenwealth.com. So that's Leaven, like heaven, but leavenwealth.com. I'm Chris at leavenwealth.com. You can also check out joinraven.com. That's Rayven, joinraven.com. Those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. I could talk real estate anytime. So I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. And I really appreciate you having me on, Michael.
It's been a lot of fun, Chris. Thanks for being on the show.